Back. So Chris is luckily joining us today. I was floundering a little bit yesterday, Chris, so I'm glad that you are back. Everything always gets a little bit better with a little bit of banter. And so the market is down, as everyone kind of already has seen, probably on Finance Junkies and some of the other uh, channels that are out there kind of streaming today. Chris also wanted to touch on China. And Chris, what other thoughts did you have for this evening?
It's just where we are in the current market cycle. I think fundamentally there's a lot of strong companies that are getting whacked right now that don't necessarily deserve it. And so I'm
Like
seeing
Upstart,
opportunities.
right?
Definitely not Upstart, but I'm looking at opportunities right now that, now that prices are starting to rationalize a little bit, it'll be a great time to pick some stuff up. Yeah, and it just depends on which sector too, because I think some sectors have been really hammered for no reason. But fundamentals haven't changed. So I think right now, because the market is on a downward spiral, everyone should be picking out the top 5 stocks that are, like if they had like a top 5 draft, which top 5 players would you draft? So like just like that. So like right now for myself, I'm doing that. Believe it or not, I've actually started to add, but very little bit in some of my higher conviction plays, because I think that this is going to be more much like shallower of a drawdown than people are expecting. You
Mm-hmm.
know, but like I said,
I
if
would
this
agree.
but this is nothing that we haven't spoke about over the last couple of weeks. I think if you've been listening to the pod, you know that we spoke exactly about this.
Yeah, I definitely don't foresee a 20% pullback or anything like that. And I think some people are running for the hills. And I don't like you and I've talked about it. So just to reiterate it, we've kind of been on this 27% run up on the SPY overall since October and November timeframe, and we really haven't had much of a breather. So the fact that we're actually getting to a point where we're 5% pulled back now, which is something that's healthy in any market, but even more so in this kind of market, just is good to see. And so one of the things I'm definitely going to be poking at as well. And I'm curious what your thoughts about this. Whenever I have some of these opportunities where you get a little bit of a retracement and you're not really getting on this full bull cycle, it's giving you a little bit of a relief. Is I like to look at the portfolio, recognize, hey, did I pick this up in the last bull cycle? Am I really actually wanting this
Mhm.
position? Or is it time to cut it and let it go?
Yeah.
But I'm assuming when you were talking about unfavored sectors, you were probably talking about REITs or maybe something else.
Yeah,
Curious.
REITs would definitely be one of the sectors that is worth dissecting, but maybe that'll be something another time. But I think, can you pull up your screen again? I think it's more important to go back and just revisit what we said last time and how that ended up playing out, right? So as an example, we said that the speculative names would be the ones that draw down the most, right? So if you go to, let's say Palantir. I mean, even though I know you're a Palantir bull, but this is
No,
just worth exploring.
agreed,
You know,
100%.
yeah, over the last month, you can see that it's a very quick 25% correction from these highs post earnings. And it's kind of crazy because this is the kind of thing that happens where when you have companies that go beyond their fundamentals, it's somewhat scary. I mean, it's nice to be in this zone of exuberance where you're like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing that happened. And when the correction happens, it's really fast, right? So this is one of the times where you have to just know yourself and protect your downside, either by buying some puts or selling some of the position that you have and doing that, or selling some covered calls and buying some protection on the downside. Because if you don't do that, you're pretty much flying naked. Now, on the other hand, if you go to Google, which is more of a
Hanging
stable
out, man.
company, huh? Yeah.
Hanging out.
Look at look at Google. Google over the last month, pretty flat, right?
Yeah.
So this is why we said it's better to right now high class your portfolio, pick up the names that are more higher class, have operating cash flows, that have a lot of optionality in their business, and they'll be able to kind of like weather the storm a lot better than the world, like the Palantirs right now, the SoFis of the world, And I feel, it's kind of sad because usually people will be like, I'll never get a chance to buy Palantir at $12 or $10 ever again. And I'm like, look, they didn't go up based on fundamentals, which means
Mhm.
that eventually they will return to fundamentals. Now, fundamentally, if let's say Palantir starts to grow their consumer business 20%, yeah, it's warranted to see that growth. But earnings came out, it wasn't warranted. So, it ran up a little bit because everyone got excited short term for the S&P inclusion. But because it's on the more speculative side of things, there's a lot of people that kind of jumped out. And so
Yep.
I think we're seeing the end result of this. Now, this does not mean that go out there and sell Palantir today. I think today it's way more fairly valued than it was um, 2 weeks ago. And I know
Yep.
that sounds crazy, but if you think about it, that's how the market works. That's how the market dynamics
You
are,
think about
man.
it, it's pulled back 30%. I mean, that's, I think a lot of us were kind of saying 11, 12, even if you're kind of putting in the future part of it, and where you think it might be if AIP kind of turns around, 11 to 12 is when a lot of us were kind of speculating in the community to start picking it back up. And here it is just below
Yeah.
14. So it went from, 21, $22 and really kind of hovered around the $20 mark during ER, now retracing back 30%. I mean, that's a pretty healthy kind of pullback, but I don't think that this should be surprising anyone. I remember everyone was kind of putting their hands on their hips being like, yeah, I'm the best investor ever, for some of these speculative positions. And really all it was the Fed kind of slowly backing off. The only thing that I think is really driving this bigger pullback today and maybe a little bit yesterday is really the wishy-washiness of the Fed with respect to being like, okay, we recognize things are in good shape. They didn't really say, hey, we're pulling back, right? They still have the majority of the folks kind of saying, two of the people voted yes, let's kind of keep it flat, but the rest of the team voted to continue to raise rates in July. Are we actually going to see the same in August? Even though things are getting better from the banking sector perspective, and it seems like housing is kind of pulling back and prices are back on the rise. So it's pretty interesting that they're very, very confident that they want to get to the 2%, and they're not wavering on that whatsoever. And it's like,
Mhm.
to me, it's pretty surprising. Like I could see a trend line when you look at the kind of the CPI over time, but they're saying like, doesn't matter, right? We want to get to 2% and almost as quick as possible, which is pretty interesting. So I think that the fact that there's another rate hike potentially on the table is what really spooked some of these speculative positions, and they were just overrun. I mean,
Yeah.
just it needed to pull back regardless. So
Yeah. And it's funny, this is where you're going to have to like look at every company individually to see like what kind of company it really is. For me right now, it tends to be about retail participation. Companies that have high levels of retail participation tend to also have the higher levels of volatility.
mm,
Institutions don't really buy and sell out of positions as quickly as, like individuals do. So whenever I see like a large institutional base, it's always like, oh, you know what? That's something like, yeah, here's another quality name. Amazon didn't do anything.
nothing. I'm
Microsoft, probably
curious
the
with
same
Apple.
thing.
Even Apple
Apple
pulled
went
back a little bit.
well, Apple pulled back because their numbers were
Yeah.
actually flat year over year and going down. So yeah. So right now the value parts of the what's the word, Magnificent Seven, which is Google and Amazon, they were able to keep up. So hopefully we see the same thing.
Wow.
Tesla is down considerably. If you go to you go to the monthly for Tesla is down
25%,
24. Yeah, which is a pretty
even
big
more.
drawdown if you think about it,
Yeah.
you know. And the thing is with Tesla is that I put out a tweet today that may be a little bit controversial. But I did it. I don't
Just
care.
for the people that are big Tesla bulls, right? I mean,
Yeah. I think Tesla can honestly get down to 150. The market is a little bit forward looking in when it comes to Tesla. And one of the things I'm starting to look at is the number of days that they're backlogged is actually shrinking pretty significantly. And right now, a lot of people are pulling back from making higher purchases. I mean, with the interest rates the way they are, I don't think too many people are going to be like clamoring for EVs right now, so I think more people are going to ride it out. So I expect the next couple of quarters for Tesla to be a little bit more challenging, especially considering their market might end up going down. Their market share might go down a little bit, and their operating cash, not their operating, like their gross margins might take a hit, because now you're seeing
Mhm.
another level of cost cutting that they're doing in China too. So
Yep.
that's never a good thing.
It's pretty crazy, man. I'm definitely going to be watching 3Q, and I don't know. If even if it goes down to 150, just based off our conversations, it's like I don't know. I mean, margin shrinking and all that stuff. It's like, you weren't in the same place as you were when it was at 100, or just over 100 a few months ago, a few quarters ago. So it's a little scarier in this respect. Yes, they're selling more cars, but is it? I don't know. So pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But one of my favorites, Rocket Lab, is back down below $6. So I'm probably going to start dabbling on that bad boy
Nice.
over some time. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Nice. Yeah. For me, I'm focusing on the regional banks and the REITs. Those have been pretty much my play for this year and probably for next year. I think a lot of them are very undervalued for where they should be. And the minute that interest rates start to get cut, they'll do exceptionally well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can you remind me, were you big into PayPal, or was it more of a swing trade for you? I'm trying to remember.
It's a bit of a swing trade for me, to be
Yeah.
fair.
Okay.
The reason why is because I think they're very undervalued. I do have some leaps on PayPal, some leap spreads. So I'm literally just letting them ride out. I think PayPal is a value stock at this price.
Mhm.
Considering that they're operationally cash flow positive, they've already announced a new CEO now, which is a big positive, because that was like one of those things that kind of sucked, like not knowing who's going to take over. And the other thing was they have a $5 billion share buyback, and they're laying off 7% of their employees, so headcount reduction. So I see a lot of like bottom line expansion for PayPal, which will eventually, get translated into their share price. But right now, they're not a very loved company for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know. For me, me. I mean, I'm more of looking for companies that have a multitude of different growth trajectories, and it's like PayPal. It makes me feel a little bit weird because I would value PayPal almost like you said as a value proposition now, and it's like if I were to have it in the portfolio, it's
Mhm.
like almost competing with like a J&J and Pepsi, or like another other REITs that I have that I view as more like long-term value positions in the portfolio. So it doesn't make sense for me if it got down to the 40s or like the mid. Like I feel like if it dropped down another 20% from here, it might be a little bit more enticing. But
Mhm.
I mean, I know that like Jeremy and Vitali and you guys are all kind of looking for a potential for it to kind of go back towards 100. I'm not saying over 100,
Yeah.
but towards it. And I could see that, but to me, it just the business is a little old, and I think it's competing with a lot of other things that might be a little bit more newer. But
Yeah.
maybe that's
Well, I
just
mean,
me.
when you think about it, like on a forward PE basis, their forward PE is like a 12. If you try to value it against the other companies out there that that are pretty adjacent to it, they're not as nearly undervalued. So I don't know. PayPal is one of those things that you're just gonna have to just buy a little bit and just relax. The market
Hmm.
is not appreciating the business nearly as much. They think that the competition is taking a lot of market share from them, which is kind of true, but they're still one of the most important like payment forms out there right now. They've got a pretty significant market share. So we'll see. PayPal will take your money if you have wrong think, and Google will censor you. But Chris doesn't care. I mean, look, politics aside, I am looking at it purely from the numbers side of things. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, do I dislike some of that company politic aspect of things? I'm not the biggest fan of it, but at the end of the day, as long as it's not that out in my face, I kind of avoid that sort of stuff. And if it
Yeah.
makes dollars, it makes sense to me. But
Yeah. You know the story behind it, right? Or no?
what, PayPal?
Yeah. With
Yeah, I mean,
the
it used
Canadian.
to be, but what do you mean?
No. Why people are saying like they what they did was they what is that thing called? PayPal was like freezing money for Canadian truckers. That whole thing.
Oh, I remember hearing that. Yeah. And maybe that's
Yeah.
part of the reason why it's down. I mean, I know some people were really up in arms about it. So,
Yeah.
quick question: you did say you were buying. Were you willing to disclose, or are you keeping that for
No,
Patreon?
no, I have it. I have it on my savvy trading like thing. So basically, I added 2 positions. Let me just pull them up real quick. If let me just share. Share. I understand. Proceed. Okay. So here's my portfolio. I've got 92 followers on it. It's free, by the way, if anyone wants to follow. You just go to savvytrader.com and type in Chris Patel, and you can actually see other traders also what they're buying and selling and whatnot. So this is a model portfolio that's based on a similar portfolio to mine. The only thing is this one does not have options. This is just purely stock, right? So you can see here, these are my core positions. I'm about 15% in cash. The rest are here. So we can actually, let me just go through the portfolio, and I'll tell you, I'll tell everyone why I'm invested in each one, and why I think they are in their position right now. Okay, so number one, I'm going to start at the bottom, and then we'll work our way up to the top. Okay.
I'm trying to remember if I knew you had bros or not.
Actually, it was a new position. I only added it this
Yeah.
week. So the first one is Dutch Bros. Dutch Bros is a coffee company out by the West. It went IPO maybe less than a couple of years, I think a year and a half ago. Great growth name. It finally hit operating cash flow starting this quarter. So if you look at the value in it, it's got a lot of potential for future growth. You know, a lot of the younger generation, they're more into companies like, Dutch Bros rather than Starbucks. So these guys could actually, you know, take some market share from Starbucks eventually. And their business model is very light. So like if you look at how these stands are structured for Dutch Bros, it's actually really small. So there's not a lot of footprint that you need in order to get one of these stores up and running. But they also have like a franchising model where you need to have worked at Dutch Bros for some time before like you get access. So you don't just like, okay, yeah, I want to open a Dutch Bros like franchise and they just give it to you. Like, no, you have to work there, which is good. That means that the quality is probably going to be a little bit higher.
Are they really on the
yeah.
East Coast? Because I know that they just
West
kind of came
Coast,
to
West
Texas.
Coast.
Okay.
West Coast.
They have
West
a few
Coast.
in Texas, and they're opening up quick in Texas. So that's
Yeah.
why I was kind of curious if it's made its way to the East Coast as of yet.
Yep. Another one is Atcore. Atcore makes electrical conduits and piping and everything else. So this one is a play on infrastructure. You know, right now with the government spending so much more on infrastructure and also the prevalence of like data centers and chip foundries, these guys like will provide a lot of the conduits and the electrical work, the wiring and stuff to get those work. Because if you think about like how many, like when you do a construction project, there is a lot of material that gets used, and these guys are one of the primary providers. It's a super low PE company, great management. They're really phenomenal with how their business operates. They benefited significantly from PVC pricing last year and the year before, so their numbers were a little bit, what's the word? Kind of like, you know, like in the past, it was a little higher than it is today. So because of that, they're getting a little bit shellacked today. TFC, I don't have to explain. They're a large regional super bank. Super regional here in the South. I think they're trading way below book value, PEs in the single digits. You know, easy enough. PayPal, once again, value stock. Everyone knows. Paramount Group, they own real estate. So this is one of my REITs. They own real estate in New York and San Francisco. This is a play on the San Francisco real estate market recovering. Boston Property Group, it's just like it sounds. No, not multifamily.
Is it commercial?
Boston Boston Property Group is mostly commercial, I think. I have to double
Okay.
check on that. Yeah. Regions Financial is another regional bank, very well run down here in the South. Zion is a regional bank out in Utah. They used to be affiliated with the Mormon Church. I think they actually laundered money for the Mormon Church for like years. So interesting enough. Disney, I don't have to really go too far into my bull thesis on Disney because I think I covered it already. KeyBank is another regional out in Cleveland, Ohio. Comerica is another regional bank. Then, of course, it's Wingstop. Wingstop is a very fast-growing fried chicken restaurant where they do fried chicken and wings and so on and so forth. But once again, they're expanding very quickly nationwide. They have a very light asset model. And they're actually able to start up places very quickly. And yeah, I think there's a lot of growth ahead for them. I'm not going to go too far into CMCT because there's a lot of due diligence there, and I'm not going to explain to people. I'm just not. It's going to take a long time for me to explain it, but it's starting to become a bigger position for me. And
I
then,
will
of course,
say
Amazon.
I
Yeah,
jumped
yeah.
into Wingstop and I looked through their investment presentation.
Uh-huh.
And I will say, while it is richly valued, I can understand why you're kind of going after it, because I do think that they're in their infancy with respect to the international exposure. And you touched that when you kind of first introduced Wingstop to a lot of people. But I would say that was one of the most followable investment presentations I've ever looked through. And it was
Yeah.
like 100 some slides. And it was just like, it was just the easiest thing to read through. I mean, not as easy as Amazon, because Amazon literally has like 4 to 5 slides. But if you wanted graphics and getting into the nitty gritty, like the Wingstop investor presentation was phenomenal. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazon, of course, everyone knows Amazon is doing their cost cut, which means they're going to have more operating cash flow, which they're probably going to channel into share buybacks. So Amazon is Amazon. SL Green is a REIT in New York City. They had some really good news come up. So I added to my position today. I'm not going to go into that today because there's just so much to go through. So I'm not going to go through that. And then Google, of course, is our like anchor that holds this portfolio steady. So usually on bad days, it's like, there's Google holding it together, So overall, this is my these are my positions. I only recently opened it up and I'm already down 3.5 something percent, but that's better than some people. So I guess I should take that as a plus. Some people are down like way more. So, and they actually charge you.
Yeah.
Interesting enough. Yeah.
I love it when it's like something that you just put together and people are like, but how's it performing against SPY? It's like, well, don't
Yeah.
really have enough time to truly put that together. But
I'll answer some questions from the thing. So let me start at the top. So Ahad, yes, I have been doing DD on Dutch Bros. I have not put it on the Patreon yet because it's just really extensive. And I'm still not done with it. But yeah, I'm pretty bullish on Dutch Bros. I've been bullish on them, but their price was just ridiculous earlier last year. Now it's getting a little bit better.
yeah, I'm curious. I haven't looked at it in a
Yeah.
while.
KeyBank is a national bank. That is true, Jackalope. You are absolutely right. They do a lot of mortgage servicing. So for like a lot of commercial real estate and for a lot of different servicing, KeyBank does a lot of servicing. Who else is next? I'm trying to think of anything else. A few in Oregon, one in South Cali. They're crushing it in Denver. Yeah, DocuSign. Okay, let me explain something about DocuSign. And this is the thing that should worry the shit out of people when it comes to DocuSign. Google just came out with a product for Google Sheets where it's almost like a DocuSign rival. Let me just share it with you guys. 1 second. Document.
The thing with DocuSign is like it barely even made any money during the pandemic, and I'm like, it still is struggling to make money. I just don't understand like how it's such a simple product, how you're not making money hand over fist with that sort of product.
Yeah,
It
right
still
here.
doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, like right here, it's called a e-signature beta for Google Docs. So literally, you would create a document in Google Docs and just send someone the link via their email, and that they could sign all the stuff and send it right back to you. And literally there's e-signature, everything's there. So very similar to what is that thing called, to DocuSign. So yeah, just be on the lookout. I'm not saying DocuSign is bad by any means. If you believe in DocuSign, you believe in it, but just know that you're competing against Big Daddy Google now, who's already got a very captive audience with Google Sheets. I know a lot of businesses that have actually transitioned from Microsoft to Google because just how cheaper things are with Google, as opposed to Microsoft full package of stuff, which is really good, by the way. I love Office, I love Excel, but Google is trying to replicate that success.
Because I think the way that Google's business model works is they're hoping that you're going to store everything on Google Cloud and Google Drive, which will increase their cloud platform, their GCP revenue. And so they give away a lot of their programs and stuff for free in hopes that you just fill up your Google Drive, and you have to pay more and more over time to be able to kind of store in the cloud, versus Windows 365 is that kind of, that basically subscription model where you always have to be paying for Word and Excel, and it's kind of a pain. So they're both great products, and we personally use well, I guess for personal stuff on my personal laptop that I'm using right now, just use Google because it's free, and I don't feel like paying for Microsoft, and it just doesn't make any sense for me. Versus at work, I mean, they force us to use Microsoft, and it does collaborate well with everything. But anyway, that's just my sorts of thoughts. And somebody wrote in the chat here as well, with respect to kind of Dutch Bros, go to let it fall. If I remember correctly, man, and I need to do my due diligence, so kind of take this with a grain of salt here. This thing is expanding rapidly, and to the point where, if you're looking at it from a valuation perspective, you're like, oh, it's not at a 15x earnings. And granted, I'm literally just pulling numbers out of my butt. I don't remember exactly what it was trading at. It's been a couple months, but I remember people are trading it in the 40s and 50s not too long ago, especially probably like a year or two ago when it first IPO'd. It's definitely came down in price. But if you're thinking about something that could rival and kind of compete with a Starbucks, maybe not in terms of size today, but in the medium to long term, it could definitely grow to be somewhat of a small competitor against it. You kind of have to look at, is this in a good financial position to continue to grow at a pace that it's growing, and look at it in that perspective. Anyway, just some
I'm going to answer one thing, and then I just want to watch some quick videos on Dutch Bros. So someone, I think Everclear said, are you shifting away from value plays with Wingstop and Dutch Bros? So my portfolio is geared towards both value and growth, So if you look at a lot of my portfolio, I have some that are specifically because they're value, and some because they're specifically hyper growth. So you don't need to have one investing style. Your portfolio can have both, So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm seeing part of my investments go towards the approach that I call it the sword and the shield, right? Where basically, to be a complete warrior, you need both. You need to be defensive and also aggressive at the same time. And so sometimes you actually get both. Like in my opinion, Google right now is both value and growth, which is hard to come by. Microsoft is in the similar boat too. So I'm not shifting from one side of the portfolio. I think it's both, actually. And it's actually really cool to have both of those things, because when the market does, rotate from one type of investing strategy to another, you're kind of covered on both of your bases, So you don't have to be a value investor only or only a growth investor. You can be both, But this is what I wanted to show you with Dutch Bros. 1 second, Matt. Have you ever had Dutch Bros before, by the way?
No, I've actually just driven. Like I said, it's just a newer thing. I know some friends that I've traded with on the West Coast or Denver area, and they talk about it because it's blowing up everywhere, and they love it. And I don't know if you follow PPCE, and he's a really heavy dividend investor, but he's huge into it.
Really?
So, yeah,
I got to check that out. But here you go.
This looks amazing. Can we get into this color once it's stirred? Perfect.
Dutch Bros versus Starbucks. Dutch Bros is the new kid on the block. And they do have stock just like Starbucks. Can they 10x the same way? First,
Doing super great. Let's go practice some orders. So when you're working drive-through, I think it's really important to give the customer bedroom eyes. I mean, if you're not up for that, you can just make sure that you interlock fingers as you...
Trying Dutch Brothers.
So the reason why I'm showing you this is because when something becomes a meme and people actually are willing to create videos and time and put that behind it, that means that there's something there, right?
Yep,
I
yep.
don't see that many people creating Starbucks focused TikToks as much anymore, like back in the day. Now you're seeing so many younger generation people, like especially the 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds, all talking about this. And it's interesting because remember, they are going to be the forward consumers for this specific product, you know?
Right.
So
There's coffee for the first time.
Love how it says
Wish
coffee
me
and
luck.
it's just pure
Who
white.
the fuck are the Dutch Brothers? I didn't even see them there. I got the birthday drink got it without coffee because I'm allergic to beans. Why?
I've drank Dutch Bros almost every day for the last year, and I've come to find out that the amount I've spent within the year is pretty ridiculous. Dutch Bros has an app that for every $1 you spend, you collect 5 points, and when you've collected 325 points, you get a free drink. In the last year, I haven't used a single one of those points, and now I've stacked a whopping 12,295 points. Each one of those numbers around the circle represents one free drink, and if you count them, you'll find I have a total of 37 free drinks. If you do some high-level math, those points I've collected since they opened the app to the public equates to spending a total of $2,459. I will not be defending my actions, and I will not be taking questions because I've drank Dutch Bros.
The story is that there's a tribe in Mali, Africa.
okay, this is something else.
Trying Dutch Brothers coffee.
But literally, they're everywhere. If you just look at it, it's.
Now you're getting me intrigued, man. I'm like thinking, where is one here around Tennessee? Because I want to go.
Yeah.
Trash. Dutch Bros? Now that's the best cup of coffee in the world. That's why we made them this custom cup of coffee slime. But if they don't...
Okay, well.
Hi guys, welcome. So today I'm doing a little beginner's guide to Dutch Bros coffee. So this is called the Golden Eagle, and it is like a vanilla with caramel drizzle latte. You can get it blended or you can get it hot. I added a soft top on top of it because their soft top is to die for, and it tastes like almost like a Starbucks vanilla latte. Hi guys, welcome.
The Golden Eagle. Better than a pink drink?
Looks pretty good.
Yeah. Hold on.
What can I get for you? Sorry, I just bumped up my nicotine.
I thought you guys were supposed to be nice.
I don't know if you know how this works, but the words nice and minimum wage don't go in the same sentence.
So you're gonna ask me how my day's going.
So this is a play on Dutch Bros because the way that you order Dutch Bros is not like there's a drive-through. There usually is like a kid standing outside with like an iPad, and they take your order. And so what happens is, as the line comes through, you go to the pickup window, and your drink is waiting for you there. So essentially, there's someone at the front waiting for you there. Usually, like I said, it's like a little punk kid.
So it's made it. So I'm just looking. It makes me. I might get up early tomorrow, Chris, and go get some. Because
I mean, if you have one around you, because look,
I'm in Pigeon. Yeah, I'm in Pigeon. Oh, Chris cut himself out. Oh, that's so funny. So I'm in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, with vacation with my family, and there's one in like a town north of me. So I'm like really curious as to whether or not I should wake up tomorrow and give it a check. Chris, I was just telling them that there's one just north of me, and I'm in Pigeon Forge, and I was looking for you because I know you're south, right? You're just across the Georgia. And I was just like, you got perks, you got some other stuff, but no Dutch Bros for you, man. So, but there's 3 of them right around the Knoxville, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg area. So maybe it'll be coming down south towards you sooner than you think. I wasn't expecting it far east.
Yeah. Let's just watch a quick video from, I think, CNBC. They actually reported this quarter, and they had really solid numbers, by the way.
Dutch Bros brewed up an earnings beat in the second quarter, but revenue did come in just shy of estimates despite a 34% jump year over year. The coffee chain also raised its full year guidance and says it is targeting 4,000 shops over the next 10 to 15 years. Joth Ricky is Dutch Bros CEO. He joins us now alongside Yahoo Finance's Brooke DePalma. Joth, when we talk about that growth, Talk to me about what the right pace and strategy for growth is, because I believe you guys learned some lessons this quarter about how you deploy new shops and where you deploy them.
Yeah, I think we've been working on pace for 5 years, and I think that every year we've tried to grow our capacity as an organization to continue to build into the new markets and the new states we've gone into. I mean, in the last quarter we opened 38 shops in 8 different states, and some of that is about how do you go into markets, how do you think about your infill rate, how do you think about the growth of your people and your supply chain and all the other things that go with that. So we're on this pace. We're going to have some really great outcomes, and we're going to have some things that we learn along the way. And I think the most important thing, as you mentioned, is you take those lessons, you learn from them, and you continue to apply them to building your business and understanding that you're building to the 4,000 shops. It's not just about the 38 that we put in place last quarter.
Good morning, Joth. When you think about really the future design of Dutch Bros, I know that there's some different shop formats. Is there one that performs better than others? And can customers expect an entirely new format on its own?
Well, I think that over the 30 years of this company, I think that we have evolved our shop format. We've evolved the way that it looks, the size that it is, the way that it could handle the capacity of customers that we have. So, you're not just managing. In some of our smaller markets, our shop footprint is very small. In some of our new larger markets, like in Oceanside, California, or some of the things we have in Texas, you have to build out a much larger footprint to be able to handle the traffic that comes through the line.
That's really good.
I think the beauty of what we've done is we'll continue to evolve, and we'll continue to learn about customer expectations, how technology plays into that, how we continue to refine the inside of our shop operationally to make sure that it's efficient as possible to manage for the future. So, I don't think you ever stop thinking about how you design what you do, and you continue to work on how consistent improvement over and over and over.
And Joth, I want to dive in a step further. You did mention technology being used to speed up your lines as well as help with that traffic. What sort of technology are you using? And I know we talked about AI a bit last quarter, but is that being used on the back end of things at Dutch Bros?
Yeah, not extensively at this time. I think we're being smart about how we look at and how we implement new technology across the board. I think that I think we all agree that technology is an ongoing investment. You never really stop, and there's no moment in time. I think that we're with the launch of our rewards program a few years ago, I think that's helped us with technology in the line. It's helped improve flow through in our line. It's helped, I think, improve the customer experience and our ability to communicate with customers. It was a big part of how we drove traffic in the second quarter, and I think our team is getting better at understanding how we do that. Really every day across all regions, whether it's a 30-year-old market or one that's brand new. I think we've talked before. I think AI is inevitable as you utilize it in your business. I think you just have to be careful about what you do and how you do it, and make sure that it enhances the business versus replacing things that may not be necessary.
So one of the things that I'm seeing a lot in the comments is they're not in my area yet. This is where you want to be when it comes to a fast growing franchise, very early in its life cycle. So it may feel a little bit overvalued, a little overpriced, but you're paying for a lot of growth. So just letting you know.
That's the thing, man. Like exactly what you're saying. So you remember when they made such a big deal about Starbucks and Austin Powers back in like the late 90s, early and I was just like, what the hell is this freaking Starbucks? Then you kept hearing Starbucks. Starbucks. And it just kept becoming this social phenomenon. Exactly what you're saying, right? So if there's if they have an opportunity to capture something while it's still spreading, and to think that you've barely hit a saturation point. I looked at several states around Tennessee, very few. Tennessee has 3 right in this area. I didn't really look on Western Tennessee, but we had somebody else in the chat saying the Eastern Seaboard is completely free. So you have all those opportunities there to pick up a Dutch Bros. And so even if I'm about to look at the numbers myself, because it's always been something that's on my radar, and I think now I'm glad that you brought it up, because I knew people that bought it in the IPO and they kind of were buying it for the hype. Now that it's had a little bit of time to get its footing underneath of itself, and the I guess price deflated a little bit after the IPO, it's time to kind of give it a good look. And I think that that's probably what you're seeing as well. I'm curious if, even if it's trading at a 40-50, like this thing is probably going to be growing revenue at a 30% or so sort of
Compounded.
rate. Compounding for several years. And if that's the case, then getting in at a 40-50 PE really is not that bad. And I think I just looked like on the headline, and it was like a 60 PE, but I don't really know if some of those times those numbers aren't fully fleshed out, right?
Yeah.
So
Just remember, Warren Buffett bought Coca-Cola when it was a 30 PE, right? So don't always wait for the PE to drop to a value that you think it's undervalued. Always remember that this is also projecting for future growth, right? So, and the thing is, like with franchises, they compound very easily. Like literally, it's just opening new locations. It's not necessarily as hard as trying to get a new customer, like more customers. It's interesting because I think one of the businesses that has like SaaS-like returns over time is actually franchises. Like look at Chipotle Mexican Grill. Like if you had invested in Chipotle in 2008, look at the return. You actually would have returned more than Google.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing. I remember they had like a scare, like Chipotle had an E. coli scare like very early on. And then it had one in like 2017 or 18, and the price got hammered. And I remember my buddy buying some, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like I'd wait a little bit. And he sold when he got like a 40% profit or something like that. It got to the point where I was just like, no, man, like this is the point where you should be buying. I think he was buying a little bit too early. And man, if he had held, he probably would have been singing a different tune. But I want to go back to kind of what you were saying here, just looking. This is I don't want to go deep into Dutch Bros, especially before I have the product. And for those of the guys that are in the chat, the 90 of you, thank you. I think this is the most we've had on Cashflow Chronicles yet. So please continue the momentum, and hopefully we can break 100 here pretty soon. And I promise to Chris, I will not do a cowbell. So the revenue is growing, just like you kind of said, 34% year over year, right? Like that's pretty astronomical. And they're just getting to the point of kind of net income break even. They didn't make a profit last year. So
their EBITDA. So one of the things is like during COVID, they did take a hit just like everyone else, but they're coming out strong, and they're growing. Look at their net income is up there now. So someone's like Kava is the next Chipotle. You know what? I want to agree with you wholeheartedly, Ren. I really do. There's only one problem that I see between Kava and Chipotle. No, I love the food. The food is delicious, man. Have you had Kava?
I gotta get your order, because there's one on Uber Eats, and I don't know why. I'm like, they used to have a thing called Nof Nof Grill up in the Northeast, and it was fucking phenomenal. And they closed that down, and then they had Verts Kebab, and I loved Verts Kebab, and they bought and sold that damn thing so many damn times. And then this is something that's similar to that, and hopefully it has staying power. But I'll have to get your order offline, because I'm curious what the hell the best thing to get is.
So Kava is delicious. The only problem is their franchising model leaves a lot of lack for quality, because what's happened is, depending on which place you go to, like I've been to this Kava near Sandy Springs, because what happened was there used to be another franchise, I think it was called Rumi's Kitchen, that was bought out by these guys. And now they're rebranding to Kava, and the food is delicious, dude. It's Mediterranean food, absolutely delicious. The only problem is, depending on which store you go to, it's a huge quality miss. The one that I go to by me in Sandy Springs here in Atlanta, I've gone, like, we have a habit of going somewhat later in the day because we work during the day. But every time we've gone, they've always run out of things. They've run out of lentils. They've run out of like the pita chips. It's like, come on, guys, like what the hell? And they're always understaffed. Whereas at least with Chipotle, like, that you're going to go, they're going to be well staffed. Their food is going to be there, and you're going to be able to get in and out. So.
This is true, man. My Chipotle, just like they renovated it and they completely hired renew staff, and my Chipotle is now banging. Like I used to like when I first moved to this area, I was like, this is my spot. It got garbage. I stopped going there. One day I was like, I'm kind of craving the chicken. Like, let's go. So I go, bang it. And I went like once or twice since, bang it. So sometimes it can be really hit or miss depending on who's slacking in the kitchen or not.
Yep.
Interesting. Well, I'll do some detail. You haven't had it, or did you get it when you were on the East Coast or West Coast? I mean,
what? So me and the wife, we usually go to Vegas on our annual trip, and so they actually have Dutch Bros in Vegas. Matt, I can't tell you. Every time we've gone, there was a line. It was never like, oh yeah, just come and get it. Like, no, there's always a line. So it's a very interesting thing. Depending on my wife really liked something called a shark bite. I think
the shark bite.
With a foam top. Which is, I don't know, like you have to try the different things. Like some of it is, it's not just coffee. It's also like energy beverages, like energy drinks that they actually just make in-house. So, but I will say this, it's terrible for you. It's fucking loaded with sugar. All right. Like loaded to the brim with sugar. So if you're diabetic,
it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Like I used to just be like a pure black coffee guy when I went to Starbucks. And then I was just like, man, I'm getting kind of bored. Like, I'm like, what are all these chicks? They always go and they get these like unicorn drinks and all this. I was like, let me check. So I like, look, top 10 best things to get. I ordered like number 1. It was like a white chocolate macadamia nut, sweet cream, macchiato, God knows what. And it comes out, it's not even coffee. It's just like whole milk, God knows what. And it's like, but it tastes freaking phenomenal. Like I can't.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm curious what Dutch Bros is all about.
It's liquid crack. It's liquid crack at this point. Yeah. Definitely check it out. By the way, October, the last week of October, we're going. You're down for Vegas, right?
I'm down.
Fuck
I'm
it.
down.
Let's go.
Message me. Have we officially like landed it, or is it still?
Yes, absolutely. We are. Okay. We're all down.
I'm down. Tell me what casino, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, let's do it. So we're gonna do Finance Junkie / Cashflow Chronicles up in Vegas the last week of October. So it'll be like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday kind of thing. Or if you want to come on Friday, that's fine too. Or Thursday doesn't make a difference. So hopefully,
who's
a nice meetup. So right now, me, Amit, Carlos, and Vitali are in. You're in too if you're down. I don't know if anyone else wants to join us. Fuck it, let's go. The weekend of debauchery.
I'm chaperone before I have any drinks. Once I get some drinks, I don't chaperone.
Amit will be the chaperone at his own birthday because he doesn't drink. So he'll be like watching us get fucked up. Be like, hey, Amit, have this drink. He's like, nah, man, I can't.
Oh, man. I can't.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Who's Amit sharing a room with? I'm not sharing no room with Amit. Fuck that. I'll share with Matt. Me and Matt will get along.
I'll
have a bottle of scotch. I'll have a bottle of scotch right next to me. Let's go.
We gotta get Tevis down there. I'll sleep on my stomach for Tevis. No, I'm just kidding. It's a bad. But anyway, I have a man crush on him. But I'm curious, man. You were telling me you were gonna educate me on what's going on in China, and I know exports are down, and I saw that you coached me earlier, Evergrande. I was trying to remember what it was. Like Evergrande, the big real estate company, finally filed for bankruptcy. Or did they file for bankruptcy last year or 2 years ago? Or were they just at the brink of bankruptcy last year, 2 years ago? I don't know.
They were on the brink of bankruptcy. I think the regulators saved them, but I think overall they're still in like they just declared a Chapter 11 now. So yeah, I have to do more research on them, to be honest with you. Maybe we can talk about it on Monday or Tuesday once the real news comes out. Next week when when we're back.
A silly question: Are these things real? These homes? So I've seen like the quick ship container things that they're able to put up like actual big apartment buildings in like 3 weeks. But then I've also seen these buildings that they put up that are basically made out of like sandstone, but not even good sandstone. Like the stuff just falls apart. Is that shit real, or is this all propaganda? Like you always have to question some of the stuff that comes out.
I saw this shit with the Chinese, like they built a hospital in like 24 hours, or they built like an apartment building in 24 hours. I'm like, what kind of like stable voodoo thing is that? I mean, you need to let concrete set before you build more. And these guys seem to just build things overnight. And I'm like, it's probably not exactly the most quality stuff. Like I've seen Let me just bring it up real quick. Like Chinese construction is, it's like it's comedy, dude. It's comedy.
Like I'm just like, are they that strapped for it, or are they trying to like get in the hospital building Olympics? Like I'm really just trying to understand, and I'm not trying to like be rude. I want to know this is the problem, right? You always go to different countries and everybody has different propaganda against each other because we're all just trying to like put an S on our chest and be the number one. And so I'm always just kind of curious what's real, what's not. You always have to question these things and when you see them, because they have the same sort of crap and that goes into Russia. That's like all their propaganda and stuff as well.
So we've got a guy standing there. He's got a little bit of a pillar in front of him. I wonder what's going to happen. Let's see.
And there it is.
Interesting. This is, well, obviously not properly constructed. There's no rebar in there. And so they probably used it for fake crops. Yeah, that's not what you want, especially if kids are playing around. And this is what we call the 中国特色 of 豆腐渣工程, which means tofu dross or tofu dreg or tofu slag construction. And this is something that plagues China all over. And this really has a lot to do with our main topic today, which of course you saw the thumbnail where it says something gross or terrible is coming out of these fire hoses in China. Let me show you. Let me take you on a little journey over here to a part of Sichuan province in China. Everybody knows Sichuan.
Just put forward.
Well, that makes me feel very confident. I don't know about you guys. If anyone out there is saying dry riser, you wait and see. You wait and see. I've got something to tell you about that later. Anyway, 3 days ago,
hold on.
Place in Jiangxi.
There was like
I talk about this a lot in the elevators, for instance. They always have those inspection things signed off saying, yes, it's inspected, it's been checked. But they just go sign the paper. They don't actually do the inspection. This is to save money and time. Anyway, this is the building that was on fire over here.
There's no water.
Come on, man.
There's no water, Matt. In the fire hose, there's no water.
And somebody flew a drone while it was still on fire. They were going to show how ready they were for a fire in the future. So what they got was, once everyone was downstairs and kind of all crowded around in this specific area, they got all the what are called baoan, the sort of security guards, who are really just kind of, in general, they kind of take care of everything. They're not just security guards, they're the baoan. And they had like a fire marshal there. Now, please pay attention to the guy with the camera. There's two of them. This was just a big PR stunt, okay? They got us all downstairs so that they could take photos of these guys doing drills with everyone in the background to say, look, they taught
show this
shortcuts which inevitably lead to these very unsafe situations. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I got some footage to show you after this, but
here we go.
Builds a house out of bricks.
Those are Chinese bricks.
You know, we never heard about the first little pig. There were 4 of them, but he built his house out of Chinese tofu bricks, and it collapsed on him and killed him. So he wasn't even part of the 3 Little Pigs story, because this is just cheap crap, pig iron type stuff that's kind of supposed to be rebar. Okay, look at how it's coming apart. These guys are smacking it and they're breaking.
Wow.
Now look at those heavy duty cables. This looks like it's part of a bridge or something, which is very concerning. And these fake hollow bricks that they use on these real estate projects. Don't worry, it's not like load bearing, but that'll be put up to make a wall or something like that. And that's something that can be broken. And how about a high-speed rail viaduct over here, whatever you call those things? Looks legit.
Yeah, this probably pushes on
fairly
that.
New construction.
Yeah.
You got people riding on high-speed rails above that stuff, you know? This is...
Nah, man, that kind of stuff is dangerous, dude. That is really dangerous.
See, yeah, I'm glad I asked, because like I was segmenting in my head. I was like, there's no way that shit is real, but I mean, the things that I hear from friends that come over and the people that I work with, I mean, they just talk about the homeland is pretty tough right now, and it's pretty interesting what's kind of going on. Geez, yeah, that's tough. I don't know what else to say with respect to that.
You know what it is? The problem is the incentive structure in China is set to be very corrupt, right? So the way that these things work is that the local government is given like growth targets to say, okay, you are going to build this many apartment buildings, whether there's a demand or not. And so these guys are like, okay, I'll put up some buildings, but they're given money to build these buildings up. But then at the same time, there's no real demand for it. And if there is demand, it's all speculation and stuff. So it's just a weird system that they have there. So I don't know, man. Even the property, you don't own the property. Like the government owns the property. You just build your building on top of it. And then 70 years later, you renegotiate, you know? So it's kind of sad, man. It really is.
So silly question as we finish this and round this out. So we already kind of talked about the market being kind of pushed around with what's going on, you know, pullback, retracement, coupled with potential news from the Fed and the notes there. Do you think this Everglade? I remember when the Everglade thing was going on last year. Evergrande. Sorry, yeah. Everglades is in Florida. When this Evergrande thing was going around last year, when they were almost near bankruptcy, and a lot of these assets were being sold hand over fist for basically bottom dollar prices, just to kind of shore up capital. The market was in a like free fall, like it was really taking a hit with that. And then I think either not too long after that or not too before that was kind of the whole thing with the Ukraine invasion. So I'm thinking, do you think that this is going to have kind of a cascade effect into the markets kind of going into tomorrow and then opening up on Monday? Or do you think that because it is such a far away thing and we have been able to kind of shield ourselves from it already like we did last year, it'll kind of just be a thing that people talk about, but it's probably going to be a non-event?
I think it's going to be a non-event for us, mainly because believe it or not, this actually could benefit us, because if there's massive deflation in China and they export that deflation to us, it just benefits us, right? We want to have more deflation so that this way we can get back to a new normal and then actually start cutting interest rates, so that this way we can kind of stimulate our own economy. So I actually think this is, I mean, it's bad for China, of course, but it's good for us. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I'm kind of curious what's going to happen. But I don't know if you have any other thoughts to add. We did go a good 58 minutes, but know that I got some family upstairs I'd like to say goodnight to, and curious if you have any other thoughts before we kick it off until next week.
No, I think that's it. I think right now, we just have to keep an eye on China, but I don't think it really impacts us all that much, because our credit system isn't intertwined in their economy as much, so we're fine, So Country Garden, it's funny that he mentioned that, because that is the exact thing I was about to show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, let me just show that real quick.
Very good. And for everybody, I'm making an alarm as soon as I get off to go to Dutch Bros early in the morning, so I can report back to you guys tomorrow.
Yeah.
Digging into Country Garden, and joins us with more, Eunice, on just how widespread this problem is.
Yeah, Sarah, earlier today I visited one of Country Garden's unfinished projects here in Beijing, and there were workmen on the property. Salespeople were there trying to convince customers that even though the company does face default, that it will make good on its promise to deliver homes. Even so, the real estate industry continued to deteriorate. In fact, today we had data out that showed home prices in July fell nationally by the most this year, 0.2% from last month. It's also worse in smaller cities, which is where Country Garden has been expanding. Now, Country Garden is really seen as representative of some of the broader industry's problems, which, of course, has a knock-on effect a potential knock-on effect on the overall Chinese economy. However, in terms of direct exposure by foreign investors, well, Capital Economics, which is a research firm, has been doing some analysis there and found that that direct exposure was small. Capital Economics says that foreign investors have already pulled back from the Chinese property sector over the past few years, and a run of defaults has further limited exposures. Since you guys had mentioned BlackRock or Allianz potentially having some exposure there, still, of course, there are worries that there could be a spillover effect in the financial sector and then the overall hit to the economy, which is just struggling at the moment, guys.
Yeah, so I think I agree with her. Based on the data that I saw, a lot of the U.S. firms that were in China already took their money out. You know, China has not been investable really ever since the whole Jack Ma thing. So a lot of people kind of took their money and just pulled it out a little bit. So yeah, I think right now the U.S. is not nearly as impacted by this. The worst thing that could happen, in my opinion, is China's economic woes make them more totalitarian. And in order to distract the general population from the bad economy, they end up going like, oh, now it's a time to invade Taiwan to distract people. So basically that's the authoritarian playbook, nationalism. Oh, don't worry about the fact that you don't have a job. Join the army. We're invading Taiwan tomorrow. You know, that's what's more concerning. So instability. Yeah. Instability is a bad mix. So I think right now we would have to be careful of that scenario, but I don't think that's likely at any point. But
Fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the thought about Dutch Bros. I will be doing the due diligence tomorrow, and I'll probably be looking in the numbers as well to see, you know, is that price to earnings of 68 real, or is it probably coming down? Because if it's growing that quickly in terms of net income, then that whatever they have as the headline on Google is probably wrong for the price to earnings. So
yeah,
very good.
Yep.
Cool. You're the man.
All right, man.
Yeah,
You're the man, dude. I'll see you. Take care.
Take care.
Later.
Bye.